Hello, my name is Kent Field, and thank you for tuning into this YouTube channel, The Bible versus Opinions. God bless you in your search for the truth. While all people have opinions on many subjects, including the Bible and religion, not all opinions carry the same weight or value. For example, would you go to a plumber for his advice on brain surgery? Would you go to a mechanic for his advice on heart surgery? The point is, not all opinions carry the same weight or value on a particular subject. That's why I'm not offering you my mere opinion, but Bible answers alone. So here's the challenge. Are you open to learning beyond your current understanding and knowledge of the Bible? If so, then this channel is for you. If these studies have helped you to grow in your understanding of the Bible, or even life itself, please like and subscribe and share this channel with others so that they too may be challenged and grow in their understanding of the scriptures.
There are a lot of people in the church who, with very good intentions, try to get away from religious traditions and religious holidays that are bound on people in different denominations. So they try to get away from those by saying you shouldn't do anything like that. You shouldn't follow it. You shouldn't use the words. Now that's interesting because most of those people in years gone by were using the King James Version of the Bible, and the only place in the whole Bible and the only translation that it's found the word Easter is in Acts chapter 12 and verse 4. Acts chapter 12 and verse 4. Now, I'm going to turn there and read it. It says, and when they had apprehended him, or he had apprehended him. Well, let's go back a little bit. Now, about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church. I'm reading from the King James Version now. And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread, the Passover, by the way. And when he had apprehended him, that's Peter, he put him in the prison and delivered him to four Quaternions. How would you say that? Quaternions?
I have to look at it.
Of soldiers. What does yours say?
This is guards.
Guards? That's fine.
Four
Squads.
squads of soldiers.
4 squads to keep him, intending after Easter to bring him forth to the people. That's a very poor translation. It's the only Bible in all of the world that includes the word Easter. It's the King James Version. Now, if anybody has a phone or anything else that they have, look up, somebody wants to look up the word Easter. Where did the word Easter come from? Yeah, sure. Where did the word Easter come from? Now, as we're studying this, I want you to realize something also. When I was taught in the School of Preaching, Sunset, many of my instructors like Klein Payton, like Richard Rogers.
So you're saying the word Passover here?
Yes.
Translated Easter.
Yes.
The King James.
That's weird because they would have a word for Passover.
Right. It's Pascha. That's the Pascha. That's the word. They just totally took it and tried to change it. Now, if you look up on a phone, where did Easter come from?
I don't know if this is correct, but supposedly I looked this up before that it was a pagan holiday,
Right.
Ishtar, which was a Mesopotamian goddess of fertility.
Of fertility, correct. That's where the bunnies
Yeah,
and the
bunnies and
eggs
eggs.
come from. Correct.
That's what it comes from.
Ishtar, yeah.
Ishtar. That Ishtar, Easter. You understand? You see the way they just tried to make it, they transliterated the word Ishtar. And they tried to appropriate because it was a time of new birth or rebirth. The fertility goddess. Okay? Ishtar. Now, I understand this and I know this. Okay? How many of you, before I told you this, or before somebody told you this, did you know this? When you thought of Easter as a child, what did you think of?
Bunny and eggs.
Bunnies and eggs, right?
No.
Everything comes from
And
somewhere.
Easter hunts.
Easter egg hunts and all that kind of stuff, right?
Or even Christmas, the way that we get.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even going to go and get into that tonight, but this it kind of goes along with the same idea. We take that. Now, some people say, well, see, you're already taking an event in the New Testament, the Passover and the Passover feast. And by the way, the Jews still kept, and Paul still kept the traditions, Jewish Christians, of Judaism, including taking the temple, paying the temple tax, taking the vow, shaving his head. And he had to show that and prove that to the Jews that thought that he was teaching to just disown everything that has to do with the Old Testament because that's done. And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. Christ fulfilled the Old Testament. It's not that and by the way, the Old Testament is our tutor to bring us unto Christ. Literally, that's our schoolmaster, or if you wanted to translate it in more kind of a vernacular, it's our school bus driver. It's our chaperone to bring us to Christ. Whatever was written in earlier times was written for our learning, is what this is all the New Testament passages that talk about the Old Testament. Jesus said, do not think that I came to abolish the law. I did not come to abolish it, but to fulfill it. Okay, so just keep all that in mind. Now, I'm going to preface everything I say right now with this little remark that we're trying to reach people with the truth. But what are people around the world right now thinking about when they think Easter? Besides little kids.
Bunnies and eggs.
No.
Well, the resurrection.
They're thinking about the resurrection of Jesus Christ. That's the celebration. Easter Sunday is the first day of the week when Jesus was raised from the dead.
Then he rise.
Yes, he rose from the dead. So now here's the thing. Wouldn't you want to talk about what the world is talking about and use it as a starting point to talk to them about the gospel and what that resurrection means? We're saved by the power of the resurrection. He's declared to be the Son of God by the resurrection. Oh, no, we were saved by his death on the cross, yes, but we were saved because of the resurrection. Because otherwise, he's dead like any other man. Either he's God in the flesh or he wasn't, and the proof was the resurrection. Being raised from the dead. That's what the word resurrect means, to raise up again, to resurrect.
I think I learned about that word.
Good. So now what we have is, what should I be talking about? Is the death and the burial and resurrection recorded in the New Testament? So is there a problem with me talking about it at any time?
No.
Romans 14.
But there's a lot of, well, that's where we're going tonight. But there's a lot of people that'll say, no, because you're associating it with a pagan holiday. And in fact, Ishtar, Ishtar, Easter, what are you doing? You shouldn't use those words. You shouldn't even talk to people about that. That's denominational. You know what I ask people when they say that?
What?
Have you ever looked up the days of the week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What Saturday means? Where it came from?
The New Testament,
No,
resurrection.
they're all after pagan gods. The months of the year.
God.
So pagan gods, that's false gods. So now what we're saying is there are people that'll say we shouldn't use the word
Like the planets, sort of.
Easter, right? Like the planets. Look up the word. Just one of you could look up on your phone again and look up where did the names for the days of the week, and then somebody
Where
else.
did the names for the days of the week come from?
And then you'll see that most of them, if not all of them, are after pagan gods.
They come from a mix of Roman and Germanic Norse mythology, with each day named after a celestial body or a deity.
Or a deity.
Here's the breakdown. You want it?
Go ahead.
Sunday, Sun's Day. Monday, Moon's Day. Tuesday, Louise Day. Wednesday, Woden's Day.
Woden's Day, the Viking god.
Thursday, Thor's Day.
There's another Viking god.
Friday, Frigg's Day. Saturday, Saturn's Day.
Yep.
So in short, sun, moon, celestial bodies, Tuesday through Friday, Norse gods aligned with Romans 1. Saturday, pure Roman holdover. Kind of a mashup of ancient influences.
Right. But they have no problem. These people say we shouldn't use the word Easter or the word disciple or other words. They have no problem using the words Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
I don't know if you guys are.
Now, how about this? How about this? Look up where did the names for the 12 months of the year come from? Look them up.
Where did the names of the 12 months come from?
And again, these people have no problem calling it July.
January, named after Janus,
Who was Janus?
a Roman god
Right.
of doors
Yeah.
and beginnings. February, from February, festival of purification.
Go ahead.
March, named after Mars. April, possibly a period to open. May, named after Maya. June,
right.
named after Juno.
Juno. Yeah, another goddess.
July,
God.
named after Julius Caesar.
After Julius Caesar, July.
August, named after Augustus Caesar.
Augustus is August.
September, from Septem, 7.
Okay.
October, from October. November, from Novem. December, from Decem. So they kind of,
They're all from pagan beginnings or so on. If that's how you associate them, and it violates your conscience to use that word, you need to be convinced in your own mind and be consistent and stop using the word Saturday or Tuesday or January.
My number is 6th day, which is 7th day.
Yeah, or the 7th month or the first 6th month or whatever. Because if you're going to be consistent and say, because a pagan used this, I can't ever use that word. Or if the Jews practice this, I cannot practice it today. Because that was under the Old Testament. Well, under the New Testament, Paul practiced some Jewish things, didn't he?
yeah.
And it was his custom to do what? On Saturday or the 7th day of the week?
Or in the temple.
To go into the temple or the synagogue. That's just the way it was. And he had to show other Jews that he was not against the law of Moses at all. Now, so what I was told in school was, why don't you preach about what everybody's thinking about anyway, or a number of people are, and maybe you can reach them and use that as a starting point
Because it's not the truth.
to talk to them about it. Why don't you use it What does Easter mean to this person that's going to some denominational church? It means Resurrection Sunday. Well, that's a good starting point, isn't it? To talk about the resurrection. You know, there's proof for the resurrection. You know what the resurrection confirms? You know what it does? Now, we just spent the last two weeks at least proving that Jesus is the Son of God, God in the flesh, and the Bible is his word, both Old and New Testament. How did we do that? Well, we went through the Bible and we saw it doesn't present itself as a myth. It's history. It's a history book. It's a big, fat history book of God's dealing with men and men rebelling against God. That's really what it's all about, and what God does to save men from their sin. Heaven and hell. This is what it's all about. We did this and we compared it to the writings of ancient pagans, ancient Jews, and modern atheists. And they all confirmed the New Testament documents is accurate. And they even admit that they're our only source material to write anything about what Jesus actually said or did are the New Testament documents. And that's what they call it. Not the Bible, it's called the New Testament documents. Now, we use those documents and history and the other historians that talked about the resurrection and empty tomb and all these things to prove that Jesus was raised from the dead. His disciples could not and would not steal the body away. They didn't even fight for him when he was alive. Peter cursed and swore that he didn't know him before he was crucified. Now he's going to be willing to die for a phony resurrection afterward? No. It doesn't work. And the Romans would not have emptied the tomb, opened the tomb, not until the Jews would say, okay, do it. Because they asked for the seal to be put on the door. The Roman soldiers didn't steal him. They sealed him in the tomb. And the Jews who wanted to crucify him and had him crucified would not seek to empty that tomb and just make a phony resurrection. Why? Because they wanted to drag that body out 3 or 4 days later and say
they were also aware of the 3-day time frame.
Yeah, that's why 3-4 days later they want to kick that thing and say, there's your resurrected Lord, dead body. And Christianity never starts, because the whole thing about Christianity is it starts on the basis of the resurrection. Peter said, men and brethren, you know that David's tomb is with us to this day. David wasn't speaking about himself. He was speaking about the Lord. And Jesus' tomb is empty. And you know it. You've seen it. You heard about it. So when Jesus therefore says the Bible's my word, well, I guess the Bible's your word then, because nobody else can be raised from the dead after 3 days of stinking in a grave, killed by experts with your heart and diaphragm punctured, your hands and feet nailed, whipped all night with scourge of cords and glass embedded in and bone embedded in leather straps. So he didn't just pass out and revive in the cool of the tomb and then overpower 2 Roman guards, at least 2, maybe 4, and then go around the land going, I'm resurrected. It doesn't work that way.
Plus, you can't really open it from the inside.
And you can't open it. Rolls in a slot. It falls into a slot. So this was an amazing thing. The tomb is empty and has been. And you'll never find the body because it's ascended into heaven. Acts chapter 1. Now, so the Bible does talk about the resurrection, just like the Bible talks about the birth of Christ. Christmas. It gives a lot of the account of the 3 magi. It gives the account of the shepherds. It gives the account of Herod wanting to kill the babies. It gives the account of no room in the inn, and that he was born in a manger, and everything that we see around Christmas time. It wouldn't that be a great time to talk to people about God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever would believe in him would not perish, but have everlasting life? Wouldn't that be a great time to talk to them about what Christmas is really all about? And that's why Pat wrote those books about Christmas and Easter, the true story, the true account. So I want us to kind of finish up with this idea or thought. 7:20. I got plenty of time. And that is to discuss this in Romans 14. I want us to turn to Romans 14. Because this verse doesn't say it's up to your church leadership, or it's up to your deacons, or it's up to your elders, or it's up to your preacher, or it's up to the evangelist. It's up to some high council as to what you regard. So I want us to read Romans 14 together, and you can read it with me if you want. Luke, come on right alongside me. Now, it says, now accept the one who is weak in faith, but not for the purpose of passing judgment on his opinions. It's, you know what? It's like somebody saying, oh, yeah, we'll let him in. We're going to mock him and make fun of him. What? Yeah, this guy's an idiot, but come on, let him in. Listen to this clown.
Haters make no sense.
So he said, right. So he says, accept the one who is weak in faith, but not so you can pass judgment on him. One man has faith that he may eat all things, but he who is weak eats vegetables only. So that'll tell you the Bible says that vegetarians are weak. Okay. But, well, it is when it's with regards to a religious viewpoint. I can't do that because
I think this is something of a metaphor, right?
yeah, well, somewhat, but no, there were people that didn't do that, and they said for the same reasons today, I can't eat something that was killed. Oh, I see. So you don't have steak. Do you have fish? Oh, that's different. Why? They don't have feelings. How do you know?
You don't even know if they have a brain.
Yeah, they do.
They do have that.
So,
Yeah, but there are some religions that believe that eating meat is wrong. So
right.
that's
Catholics
really
are-
and that's what he's talking about, because when you come from a certain religion that says I can't eat meat because that's a descent, that's one of my reincarnated
Well, if you have
relatives.
nothing else to eat, you actually have nothing.
Well, that people do, and they'll rather starve to death because it's like the Hindus. They believe Hindus believe yes.
My friend Michael, he's like, his mom is Catholic, his dad's Jewish, so on Friday he doesn't eat meat.
Right. Okay, that's another thing.
Because of Catholic.
Right. That's their belief. That used to be Nana's belief when she was growing up. They always had fish. You couldn't eat meat. But what's the difference between fish and meat?
Nothing. It's still
It's still a meat. So
It's not a
anyway,
vegetable.
but anyway, let him who eats, let not him who eats regard with contempt he who does not eat. So don't look down your nose at this guy who says I shouldn't eat meat. It's against my faith. It's against my belief. I just have a hard time with that. Yeah, he's new Christian. He's weak. But don't pass judgment on him.
Don't force them.
And don't force him. Why? And let not him who does not eat judge him who eats. Oh, how could you do that? You're eating another creature of God's creation. How could you? You're eating a cousin of yours. No, well, in your religion, maybe. But what does he say? For God has accepted him Who are you to judge the servant of another? Now, the servant meaning we're all servants of God if we're Christians. So he's saying, who are you to judge another servant of another? He said, to his own master, he either stands or he falls. It says, up to his master. And stand he will, for the Lord is able to make him stand. Well, I don't like that. I don't care what you don't like. This is scripture. There's no arguing. Well, we can argue about the application. You can try, but he's given a number of applications here. He'll also talk about wine earlier in the book of Romans and in 1 Corinthians. Same thing. So, watch. One man, here's another about the days of the week and all that, and holidays or anything else. Now, before we continue reading here, I want us to go to Colossians. And I believe, yes. First, Colossians chapter 2 and verse 16. Now, he's just got done talking about in this paragraph above how Christ took the commandments and the ordinances that were written against us and took them out of the way and nailed them to the cross. So, he says, because he made an open display of them and triumphed over them through him, verse 16, therefore, let no one act as your judge in regard to food or drink, or in respect to a festival, or a new moon, or a Sabbath day. Things which are a mere shadow, they were the shadow system of the Old Testament, of what is to come. That was the New Testament, Christ and the Christian system. But the substance, the reality, what casts that shadow, the body and the substance belongs to Christ. He's saying that the what is to come was the substance, was Christ, casting the Old Testament shadow system. Now, it says, let them no longer keep judging you. Let no one keep defrauding you of your prize by delighting in self-abasement, that's beating themselves down because they're so holy.
Or refusing to eat meat.
Or as that kind of thing, refusing to eat meats. Worship of angels, taking his stand on visions that he has seen, and some versions will say on visions that he has not seen. Inflated without cause by his fleshly mind. He's pumped up in the brain. And not holding fast to the head, whom the entire body being supplied and held together by the joints and ligaments grows with a growth which is from God. Now, this says don't let people judge you with regards to a festival of new moon, and so on and so forth. Now, a lot of people have said, well, that's because they were trying to bind that Old Testament law, the Sabbaths, the new moons, the feasts, so on and so forth. The festivals, okay, what they could eat, what they could not drink, and so on. So they were telling people what they had to do. That's what some people have said. This says, don't let them judge you with regards to food or drink, or festivals, or a new moon, or a Sabbath day. Don't let them do it. Why? Well, because the body belongs to Christ. That was all a shadow system. But what he's saying is you could still do what you need to do the way you want to do it. Oh, yeah, where does it say that? Romans 14, we're going to continue reading now. I just wanted you to know that I'm aware of those other passages, but they go together with this passage we're about to read. They don't contradict. They go together. They complement.
Yeah, I think, when it goes on in Colossians to be more critical, like in the verses after that,
Yes.
it's talking about worshiping angels and things, like taking it too far, versus if one person just wants to observe a Sabbath or pray or whatever.
Right.
Versus, worshiping angels and other things.
Now, watch this. One man, verse 5 in Romans 14, regards one day above another. Another man, every day alike. Let each man be fully convinced by the elders. No?
No.
Let each man be fully convinced by the preacher.
No.
Let each man be fully convinced by the seminary that he studied in. No. One man regards one day above another. So if I want to regard July 4th as the birth of Christ, what does it say? What does it say here? Colossians said, let no man judge you. This one says, don't judge the other one. Let each man be fully convinced where?
In his own mind.
In his own mind. Really? He who observes the day observes it for the Lord. And he who eats does so for the Lord, for he gives thanks to God. And he who does not eat, for the Lord he doesn't eat, and he gives thanks to God. For not one of us lives for himself, and not one of us dies for himself. For if we live for the Lord. And if we die for the Lord. Therefore, whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. We're his property. We're his. Now, if somebody says to me then, well, he's coming from a denominational world, and Ishtar is Easter, and they're believing in what? If they're going to church on Easter, what are they believing in?
The resurrection.
They're believing in Jesus and the resurrection. That's a good starting point. That's a good starting point. If somebody wants to celebrate the birth of Christ in January, new birth, new beginning, as we learned that was named after that god or a concept, that pagan belief of the new beginning of January. Well, if they wanted to think of Christ's birth that day, instead of December 25th, should you have a problem with it? No. Where is it written in December 25th in the Bible? Well, I don't think we should even regard one day above another. Well, that's you.
Yeah, well, it says that other man regards every day alike.
That's right. And each person is convinced in their own mind. Well, as far as this congregation is concerned, no, you don't do that. You don't do, that's the very thing you don't do. He was talking to the Romans about. He was telling the Colossians about that. Don't do that. So if somebody's convinced that, you know what, the Bible does give the account of the birth of Christ, it's okay for me to, well, the Christ Mass, that's where the word Christmas comes from. Is that what they mean? Or is it just the time of year? These words, although they have roots in other history way back. They don't own the patent on those words anymore. Otherwise, you can't use them anymore, I would say, to the legalist. Yeah.
Well, it's also like Halloween, although there's all kinds of ghouls and goblins, and I guess Satan rituals through. Our kids only looked at it as a day to go around and get free candy and dress up. They never looked at it as a holiday to worship Satan before the next day, which is
It was
almost
costume
And
day.
St. Patrick's
But if
Day.
somebody else
What about
in your
St. Patrick's
congregation
Day?
wasn't comfortable with Halloween and didn't want to celebrate it or didn't want their kids to celebrate it, that would be their.
right.
So there are different things that mean different things. Even this St. Patrick's Day, about a patron saint that supposedly drove the snakes out of Ireland.
Didn't see it as just trying to find a leprechaun.
That's all. Some people look at it as a time to get drunk, but a lot of people just look at it as they're proud of their Irish heritage. It's Irish Day. That's it. So it depends on how you view it. And that's what Romans 14 is teaching. It's how do you view it? If you, in 1 Corinthians, he says, if you think it's wrong and you do it, you violate your conscience. And it's wrong. Can somebody help me find that? In 1 Corinthians, I believe it's chapter 8. 1 Corinthians chapter 8. Now, 1 Corinthians 8, verse 1. Now, concerning things sacrificed to idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge makes arrogant, but love builds up or edifies. If any supposes that he knows anything, he has not yet known what he ought to know. You think you know it? I've always said this, the more I learn, the more I found out, the less I know. But if any man loves God, he is known by him. Therefore, concerning the eating of things sacrificed to idols, I was told we better not do that. Well, we know that there is no such thing as an idol in the world. And that there is no God except but one, the one true God. For even if there were so-called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as indeed there are many gods and many lords, he's talking about now amongst men, false gods. But even if there were in heaven, yet for us there is but one God, the Father, from whom are all things, and we exist for him. One Lord Jesus Christ, through whom are all things, and we exist through him. However, not all men have this knowledge, but some, being accustomed to the idol, even until now, eat food as if it were a sacrifice to an idol, and their conscience, being weak, is defiled. They're new Christians. They don't understand a lot of things. And now they're violating their conscience because they realize a lot of the meat in Corinth and around these places has been dedicated and sacrificed to idols. That it's put up for sale for people to consume. But the food will not commend us to God. We are neither the worse if we do not eat, or the better if we do eat. He's saying it makes no difference.
Religiously.
Right. But take care lest this liberty of yours somehow become a stumbling block to the weak. For if someone sees you, who has knowledge, dining at an idol's table, and he knows that it's meat sacrificed to an idol, and he's a new Christian, and he goes, "Oh, what's Sal doing? What's Sal doing? What is Sal and Mike? What are they eating?
Look at yourself.
Will not his conscience, if he is weak, be strengthened to eat the things sacrificed to idols. For through your knowledge, he who is weak is ruined, the brother for whose sake Christ died. And thus, by sinning against the brethren and wounding their conscience when it is weak, you sin against Christ. Therefore, if food causes my brother to stumble, I will not eat meat again, that I might not cause my brother to stumble. Again, this stumbling is falling away. It's not, well, I'm offended by you. Well, I'm offended by you too. So, let's look at 1 Corinthians 10 and verse 23 will start. Same thing again. All things are lawful, but not all things are profitable. All things are lawful, but not all things edify. Let no one seek his own good, but that of his neighbor. Eat anything that is sold in the meat market without asking questions for conscience sake. Eat anything. Don't ask. Don't ask any questions. Because what happens if you do and they tell you? For the earth is the Lord's and all it contains. Now, if one of the unbelievers invites you and you wish to go, eat anything that is set before you without asking questions for conscience sake. He's saying don't worry about it. That's what conscience sake is here. He's saying don't even worry about it. Don't even think about it. Conscience sake means with knowledge, by the way. Science is with knowledge. So it's conscience sake. Your conscience is what. Don't even think about it. I mean not your own conscience, but the other man's. For why is my freedom judged by another man's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I slandered concerning that for which I gave thanks or give thanks? So if I want to think of the Lord, a special day for the Lord, dedicated unto the Lord. You know what? I want to think about the resurrection on Wednesday, this next week. Go right ahead. That's the point. Go right ahead.
Except if it causes somebody else to stumble.
Right. And then you have to, for that week, brother, be careful what you're saying and doing. But at the same time, he says, I'm not going to be slandered because your conscience is weak. That's what he just said.
I actually thought it was saying the opposite.
This meat, watch, bro, if anyone should say to you, this meat is sacrificed to idols, do not eat it. For the sake of the one who's informed you, and for conscience sake. Now watch. I mean not your conscience, but the other man's. But why is my freedom judged by another's conscience? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I slandered concerning that for which I gave thanks? He says, why? He's asking a rhetorical question there. Why? Why should I question myself or challenge, stop myself from doing something? Whatever then you eat or drink, whatever you do it all to the glory of God. Give no offense either to Jews or to Greeks or to the church of God.
I think what I'm saying there is that, yeah, you're not eating it. Like when someone tells you it's sacrificed idols, the reason you don't eat it is not for the sake of your own conscience.
Right.
Your conscience is fine. You don't eat it because you don't want to be a stumbling block to
that. Right. If I said something else, I was
Instead
not
of the
clear.
other way around.
Okay, I'm sorry if I did. So, just as I pleased all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of the many, that they may be saved. Well, you got to think about people in the church that'll be offended by what you do. Oh, are they going to go back to Catholicism because I think about the resurrection of Christ on Easter Sunday? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Isn't what he's talking about
Well, it's
is
delicate. It's careful because I think if you do that in your privacy of your own home or anything, then that's fine. But if you're loud about it and it causes other people to stumble, then that might be a problem.
right. It could be, and you cause. Here's the thing: if you do this, and the thing is demanding, judging you in
Right.
regards to
Right.
a festival,
Right.
a new moon, a holy day, a Sabbath day.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Binding it
Yeah. I went-
either way, binding it either way
Right.
is the problem.
Right.
So that's where somebody says, "Well, what should we talk about?" Well, what are the kids hearing about this time of year right now? What are they seeing on commercials and everything else?
Easter.
Candy.
Easter bunnies,
Chocolate bunny.
chocolate bunnies,
Easter egg
and
hunt.
those marshmallow peeps or whatever they are.
Peeps here.
All right, all this kind of stuff. What are they? What is there a chance to turn that around and say, that's not what the original idea of what King James called Easter, and it just so happens it was at that time of year at the Passover, the high Passover.
And how are kids gonna learn if they're just putting ads up about Easter egg hunt?
That's right. How a kid, you have to teach them in the church what it really means, and not be afraid to use those workbooks or things that teach the kids, like what Pat wrote.
A lot of kids in my school don't believe in God or Jesus.
I know. A lot of adults don't either.
No one believes in the.
Some people
But what I wanted us to see is this: if you had to, with these verses, can you stand on your own with your conscience and say, I have no problem with somebody wanting to think about Easter on what is it, April 20th or whatever day it is?
Yeah.
I don't even know what day it is.
Yeah, I haven't heard any pushback on that. Like, in fact, they talked about this in Patrick, and Lancelot takes the exact same position as you. That it's a great thing that people are talking about Jesus, and you should take advantage of it.
That's right. It's not that way in all congregations.
I'm sure you're right. Yeah, I'm saying I haven't personally seen any pushback on that.
Right. And I have from time to time, but you know what? The fact is, when you do, you have to grin, be patient, and understand that even if it's a preacher or a deacon or an elder or a Bible class teacher or a seminary teacher or whatever it is, they may be weak in that area that they didn't study it out. Because are they consistent? I would just ask them, okay, so you don't use the days of the week, the names? You don't use the months to name the months? What are you talking about? Oh, I see. That's the point. Because you use those months doesn't mean you're worshiping idols. Because we're in January. Right now we're in April. It doesn't mean I'm worshiping a God that started the month April, that was the name of April. Because this is Thursday night doesn't mean I'm worshiping some deity. And I use the word Thursday.
But there's a difference between
I mean, he has a really cool hammer.
Thor.
Thor? Yeah.
there's a difference between knowing beforehand that the days of the week mean that, and
And even if you do,
you're right. Yeah.
what does it matter if that's your understanding is unless all of a sudden now, oh, am I worshiping idol because I use the word Thursday? Well, my question would be to you, were you worshiping an idol before?
What's your intent on doing?
No, well then, so what? It's just a word.
No, like what's your intent on using?
Yeah.
Like
Like
Sunday,
worshiping
Monday?
something requires you to actually be worshiping it.
Right.
Yeah, it's not just saying
Yeah,
a
trying to
word.
put it
Right. So but the thing is, I don't care if it had the word Easter had a pagan origin. Many words in our language have pagan origins, to my point.
Statue of Liberty, everything. What's everything you see around you
Is some kind of thing. Bible, God said, make no likeness of anything of man on the earth or above the earth,
It's similar to what you said too when we were talking about.
are just like certain things.
but make no likeness. You shall not bow yourself to them. So what was the purpose of me making those statues of things? So it was when I made a clay model of my third grade teacher on the beach under an umbrella, and I was in third grade, and she showed my mother.
What was it?
It was a clay model of my third grade teacher.
Was it to mock her
No,
or actually?
I loved her. I loved that teacher. I was just making something. I wanted to be creative. I didn't want to make it just an ashtray. Was I worshiping? Was I worshiping?
It makes you
Her?
seem like you like
No.
like you.
And
like
she was
like-
thrilled to show my mother this model of her on the beach. This terrible clay molding that I did
I thought you said
with a palm tree sticking up or an umbrella, whatever it
Oh,
was.
and you even had palm trees back then?
It was either a palm tree or an umbrella, and stuck it up and everything else. It was a palm tree. But the point is, that's so what? I didn't do it to bow myself and worship it.
So it's not that you can't make a statue, it's the purpose for the statue.
Right. Thou shalt not bow thyself to them. I am the Lord your God. You will have no other gods before me. That's what he said in Exodus 20.
Right. But you could also make the argument, and I think many people have, that it's dangerous to do so, though, because people's inclination over time is to worship.
Well, many people, for example, in the statue of St. Peter in the Basilica
Perfect example.
of in Rome, the big toe is worn away from people's lips kissing.
Yeah.
That's how many lips have kissed that thing. And it's actually a toe shows signs of wear from people kissing a statue's toe.
Right, so it's dangerous. But some of those things are so beautiful, like the
I don't
what are they
know
called?
how
The
to
pieta. I
the
don't, I
pieta,
can't. It's just absolutely gorgeous, right? It's like, you know,
So either they're works of art or they're works of worship. Now, for all the Roman Caesars, all their statues were made because they were gods,
Right.
and they were supposed to be remembered as gods.
As people should bow down and worship.
Even the
those
statues.
Yeah.
So again, if I look, so that means I shouldn't go to a museum ever, because they may have statues.
With people's lips on them.
that is
See, so
just-
people are not consistent and strong and grounded in the word, to where Paul is just saying very plainly, this has been here for a long time. Be convinced in your own mind. Stop judging one another.
'cause if you
That's the if you that's the study tonight. I hope that this may help us, and it's a good thing to go over, especially in light of the fact that we just spent so much time, and it was so important to prove that Jesus was raised from the dead, that the Bible is his word. And then therefore, when he says Moses wrote, guess what? Moses wrote, not some 5th century rabbi. If he said he that made them from the beginning made them male and female, and he quotes Genesis, then he endorses the Genesis account of creation, and so on. When he talks about the prophets, then guess what? They existed.
yeah. So in John 5, he says Moses wrote about me, and you
Right. So when he says Moses wrote, then Moses wrote. When he said that he came to fulfill the prophets, he came to fulfill who? The prophets. So these prophets in the Old Testament are, guess what? Confirmed by the one who was raised from the dead. So that makes all the difference in the world, and that makes my hope for heaven real. Not, well, I hope. Like I talked to a guy today who was a computer customer, and I said, I want to talk to you about, there's a way that you could know that there's a heaven and that there's a hell, and you can avoid one and go to the other one, and you can be certain. And I'd like to share that with you. And he started to cry. 60-something-year-old man picking up his computer. But I said, you can know. I can show you how you can know. Not doubt, but know and be confident that if I die tonight, I'm in heaven. And that's not arrogance. It's not misplaced ignorance.
Not pie in the sky.
It's not pie in the sky. It's not depending on my own righteousness. It's just based on the facts and proven by history, science, genetics, physics, archaeology, geography, geology, and an empty tomb.
Thanks for being a part of that study segment. I promise you that, Lord willing, there's more to come. With the understanding that the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure, many of these studies have been broken up into a series of bite-sized segments. So be sure to look for the next segment in each Bible study subject, so you won't miss out on any important information. Please like and subscribe if you feel that this lesson's helped you, and God bless you in your search for truth.